They say silence means disinterest, that when a man pulls away, it's over. But in love, silence doesn't always mean absence, and attention doesn't always mean commitment. Sometimes the most confusing place to be is caught between a man's rejection and his continued attention. You hear no, but feel maybe. You sense the door closing, but he still leaves it ajar. And that tension, it pulls at your nervous system, not just your heart. Through the lens of overfunctioning, we often respond not with stillness, but with pursuit. We explain, we fix, we question, we text, analyze, reframe, and wait for clarity that never comes. But emotional chasing doesn't pull someone closer. It proves they can keep you near without offering themselves in return. Here's the truth. Ambivalence is not affection, and your reaction is not your responsibility to carry alone. The real work begins not with decoding his mixed signals, but with recognizing the internal conflict he triggers in you, that part of you that believes love must be earned through effort, availability, or emotional labor. So ask yourself, who am I when I stop trying to make someone choose me? That answer reveals more than any hot and cold behavior ever will. It separates false hope from true worth. It puts you back in connection with your own secure footing, the one that knows love should not require confusion as proof of value. When a man rejects you but still acts interested, he is not confused, he is benefiting from your confusion. When a man rejects you but still acts interested, what you're encountering is not affection, it's ambiguity. And ambiguity in romantic dynamics is rarely benign. It creates emotional flooding. Flooding is what happens when your nervous system becomes overwhelmed by mixed signals. One minute you feel seen, the next you're dismissed. It's not just painful, it's biologically disorienting. Your heart races, your mind loops. You can't think clearly. Why? Because your brain is trying to resolve two opposing truths. He doesn't want a relationship, but he doesn't fully let go. That contradiction hijacks your ability to self-regulate. Here's the first aha insight. When someone withholds clarity, they hold power, not connection. Now, in Gottman's work, we talk a lot about bids for connection, those subtle or overt ways we reach out to feel close to someone. A text, a look, a question like, "Did you miss me?" When a man has rejected you, but continues to respond to your bids, or worse, make some of his own, it activates your hope circuitry. Even if his bids are shallow or inconsistent, your brain latches onto them. You start filling in the gaps with fantasies, not facts. This brings us to love maps. A love map is our internal roadmap of someone's world, what they fear, value, love, and long for. When you're in a hot-cold dynamic, you begin building a distorted love map. You imagine depth where there is only surface. You assign meaning to gestures he never earned. And this distorted map leads you somewhere dangerous, a false intimacy that keeps you emotionally invested long after the relationship has ended. Here's where healing begins. When you choose not to chase clarification, but instead choose stillness, silence, space, not as punishment, but as repair. That brings us to the second aha. Silence isn't cold, it's a form of self-respect. It reestablishes boundaries when your emotional center has been outsourced to another person's inconsistency. The four horsemen, criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling, aren't just patterns between couples. They can become internalized voices in you. You criticize yourself for not getting it right. You feel contempt for your needs. You become defensive about why you're staying, and then you emotionally stonewall your own intuition. That's why this pattern isn't just about him, it's about what's being activated in you. Let's walk through a behavior insight healing loop. Behavior. You send a text just to check in after he's gone quiet.
Insight.
You're making a bid for connection to soothe the anxiety his ambiguity created. Healing. Instead of seeking reassurance externally, practice self-soothing. Take 3 minutes to breathe, ground, and name what you're feeling without judgment. This shift from external to internal regulation moves you out of emotional dependence and into emotional intelligence. Now, for a critical reframe, you might believe that your persistence proves your love. But what if it's not love? You're practicing, but over-functioning. What if you're constant explaining, hoping, proving, and pursuing isn't devotion, but a deep fear that being passive means being forgotten? The truth is, detachment, when conscious, isn't about withdrawal, it's about dignity. It says, I will not audition where I am not cast. It breaks the trauma bond of craving what you're never consistently given. And finally, remember you are not confused. You are exhausted. And exhaustion often masquerades as doubt. Your intuition knows the truth, but your heart hasn't been given permission to accept it. So give it permission. Today, pull your energy inward. Let silence speak. Let the ambiguity collapse under its own weight. That's not giving up. That's choosing yourself. Her name was Celeste, 34, gentle-eyed, always the one who gave the benefit of the doubt. The kind of woman who answered slowly, listened deeply, and fell for potential like it was a promise. She met him at a friend's art gallery. He asked about the painting she couldn't stop staring at. She liked the way he didn't fill every silence. It felt like presence. At first, they started seeing each other. Nothing official. A dinner here, a night at his place there. He say things like, "You sir, so easy to be around," or "I've never felt this safe with anyone." But when she brought up where it was going, he said he wasn't set ready. She didn't set leave. Instead, she told him how she wasn't pressuring him, how she just wanted clarity. She wrote him long texts that sounded rational but ached with hope. Sometimes he'd reply, sometimes he wouldn't. And the worst part, when he didn't respond for days and then sent a casual thinking about you at 11:42 p.m., her heart would leap. And she thought that was connection. It was actually conditioning. One night she sat on the edge of her bed, phone glowing in her hand. She had typed, "Hey, can we just talk for 5 minutes? I just need to understand where you stubber at." Then she paused, not dramatically, just a quiet inhale, the kind you take when something inside you softens and steals at the same time. She didn't send it. She deleted the message. There was no grand revelation, no tears, just a whisper inside her chest that said, "He knows exactly how little he's giving you, and he knows you still stay." That was the mirror moment, the one where she didn't ask what he felt. She asked why she kept needing to be chosen by someone who only ever offered confusion wrapped in breadcrumbs. That week, she didn't reach out. He sent his usual "miss your voice" on a Sunday afternoon. She stared at it, then put the phone down without replying. Not to punish him, not even to make a statement, but because it suddenly felt beneath her energy. She started going to the farmer's market alone again, reorganizing her books, saying no to things she used to say yes to out of guilt or fear. She was quiet for a while, but it wasn't loneliness, it was restoration. Because the moment she stopped begging to be understood, she finally understood herself. Getting him back was never the goal. Getting me back was, when a man rejects you but still acts interested, your nervous system often gets caught in a loop, anxiously waiting, overanalyzing, and trying to predict what's real. These are trauma responses masquerading as romantic strategies. And the truth is, you don't need to decode him. You need to return to yourself. Let's talk about a few emotionally intelligent tools you can begin using right now, rituals rooted in both neuroscience and Gottman method research. They're not about controlling him. They're about regulating you, reclaiming your peace, your clarity, and your power. When you feel the urge to text him, clarify your feelings, ask where he stands, or even just check if he watched your story, pause for 60 seconds. This isn't a delay tactic. It's an act of emotional self-protection. According to Gottman's research, couples who learn to self-soothe during moments of emotional flooding are far more likely to stay in healthy connection long-term. But here's the key. Soothing isn't silence from suppression. It's space for recalibration. Ask yourself gently, what feeling just got triggered? What need am I trying to meet through this impulse? Can I give that to myself right now instead? A pause can become a pivot. It can break the pattern of emotional chasing and restore your emotional clarity. Emotional ambiguity creates what we call low-grade relational trauma, the kind that builds over time, quietly, through inconsistent signals. If you don't label what you're experiencing, your body will keep score. So name it. Say it out loud. Write it down. Use language that grounds you in your reality. I feel dismissed. I feel strung along. Some hoping his mixed signals mean something they don't set. When you name an emotion, you deactivate its grip on your amygdala. This technique, backed by both Dr. Dan Siegel and validated by Gottman's research on emotional awareness in relationships, reduces reactivity and increases self-regulation. Try this tonight. Light a candle. No phone, no distractions. Write down this prompt in your journal. What did I give today that I didn't receive in return? Let it be a sacred space for honesty. Don't fix it. Don't justify it. Just notice. This is how you build emotional accountability with yourself. Over time, this simple practice recalibrates your boundaries. You begin to see where your energy goes out and where it never truly returns. Here's a clinical but deeply compassionate practice for every emotional trigger he activates in you. Every moment you feel discarded, confused, or desperate, offer yourself 3 internal validations. Trigger: he watched your story but didn't reply to your message. Self-validations: my feelings are real, and I accept not imagining things. I am allowed to want clear, safe communication. Someone who is, for me, one set, keep me questioning my worth. This 3-1 ratio reflects a version of Gottman's magic relationship ratio, which shows that stable, happy couples maintain at least 5 positive interactions for every negative one. You can adapt this same principle to your internal dialogue. Healing begins when your inner partner becomes more consistent than the outer one. When you're in a dynamic with a man who won't fully let you go but won't fully show up, you end up stuck in emotional limbo. You keep leaving the door open just in case. That's not neutrality. That's self-abandonment. So create a ritual to mark the close, not for him, for you. Write a goodbye letter you don't send. Archive the chat, turn off story views, reclaim your emotional bandwidth like it's sacred real estate, because it is. And remind yourself, clarity doesn't come from his words. It comes from your boundaries. These tools may seem simple, but they are powerful. They're not about doing more. They're about doing less, more deliberately, less chasing, less proving, less hoping, because The moment you stop managing his confusion, you begin honoring your own clarity. If you're here, it's because something in you is tired, not just tired in the physical sense, tired in your soul, tired of explaining your needs to someone who hears you selectively, tired of waiting for the version of him that shows up just often enough to keep you hooked, but never long enough to make you feel safe. You may not call it heartbreak. You might tell yourself you're fine, that you understand where he's coming from, that maybe he just needs time. But if you're honest, you feel invisible, not fully seen, not fully heard, not fully chosen. And I want to say this to you with clarity and compassion. Detaching is not abandonment. It is not punishment. It is not cold. It is a return to self-worth. See, the nervous system doesn't understand the difference between inconsistency and danger to your body. Inconsistency is danger. And when someone is emotionally present one day, then distant the next, your system becomes flooded. It starts chasing closeness, not out of love, but out of survival. You start performing for love, walking on eggshells, softening your truths so they're easier for him to swallow. You tell yourself, if I just explain it better, if I set more patient, if I show him how much I care, maybe he'll see it. But what you're really doing is protecting him from discomfort while leaving yourself exposed to pain. Let me offer you this mirror truth, one I have seen in hundreds of women who come into therapy believing they set too emotional, too needy, or too intense. What if you weren't set too much, just unprotected? What if your desire for connection isn't the problem, but your boundary against disrespect is simply underdeveloped? That accepts the shift. Because there's a part of you, maybe a very young part, that still believes that if you're accommodating enough, loving enough, available enough, you can change him. But love that requires self-abandonment is never love. It's performance. And that's what has to stop. Here's your goosebump moment. You are allowed to leave the conversation, even if he never gave you closure. You are allowed to stop mid-text, mid-thought, mid-cycle, and say, this isn't nourishing me anymore. He doesn't need to agree. He doesn't need to validate it. You don't need one more signal, breadcrumb, or excuse. You get to decide, this isn't love. This is confusion. And you get to choose peace over potential. So what do you do when a man rejects you but still acts interested? You stop negotiating with contradiction. You stop answering ambiguity with explanation. You go quiet, not out of anger, but out of alignment. Because silence, when it's chosen from worth, is not emptiness, it's clarity. And if you're still wondering, but will he come back if I pull away? Let me ask you gently, why do you want someone to return who only half chose you the first time? You don't need him back. You need you back. That is your transformation. That is your work forward. I do not chase because I no longer beg for what peace cannot live inside. Let that be the statement you carry. Not just today, but every time your heart forgets how much it deserves to feel safe. They told you silence meant disinterest, that detachment was cold, that if someone pulls away, your only choices are to chase harder or let go with a broken heart. But now you know something deeper. Not all silence is absence. Sometimes silence is where your dignity returns. You no longer have to explain yourself into exhaustion. You no longer have to make sense of someone else's confusion. Because clarity doesn't come from decoding him. It comes from remembering you. And that sits the shift. You are not the woman waiting to be chosen. You are the woman who now chooses peace over proving. You are the woman who remembers that her softness isn't weakness. It just needs better protection. So if you feel the ache of that rejection and you still feel his pull, pause. Don't react. Don't reach. Let stillness hold you. Let that be your new instinct, not to pursue, but to return to yourself. You are not too much. You were just unprotected. And now you are choosing to protect your heart with boundaries, not bargaining. Stillness isn't silence. It's where your clarity lives now,